All right. This question is asking what is amplitude. So this could be applied in a ton of different scenarios. So we could have this applied to physics or math, like a sine function or a sound wave or anything like that, since they typically oscillate. If we're looking at a wave, let's imagine this is time, and we have a sine wave here. Oops, trying my best to draw something quite, I don't know, a little bit even. We can see that it oscillates with time, right? So there are a couple of things that we can label about this graph. First of all, we can label this distance here. So the distance from the beginning of one cycle of a wave to the end of the cycle, that is the wavelength. And what this question is asking for, actually, oops, not quite top, but it's not a perfect wave. This distance from the, if this was x, for example, from x equals to 0 to the maxima on the wave, that would be called the amplitude. Amplitude. Oops. That's how you spell it. So let me just read the explanation here. Amplitude is the highest point or the maximum displacement of points on a wave. It can also be considered the intensity or degree of change of a wave. Another thing that's measured from the wave is the wavelength, which I have labeled here. And that is the distance between two successive points, like adjacent peaks or troughs. So this, from this trough here to this trough here, this is also considered the wavelength, right? So this should be, sorry about that, this should be the same distance. I mean, my graph isn't perfect, but roughly the same distance, right? So yeah, the distance between two troughs, which are the minima, or the distance between two maxima, should be the same as the distance between this point at where x is equal to 0 to this point. After, like I said, one full, yeah, it says here wavelength is also considered for the time, or considered the time for a wavelength to complete a full cycle. All right, let's keep reading. The amplitude is measured from the equilibrium position, right here, where x is equal to 0. It's seen as the shape of the medium when there is no disturbance from a wave, hence it is at constant. Another way to think about the amplitude is that it is the vertical distance from the equilibrium to the peak or trough of a wave. So yeah, since this here is the amplitude, I keep drawing over the same lines, but this is the amplitude. This distance here is also the amplitude. So from the max to x is equal to 0, or from x is equal to 0 to the minima. So these should be the same amplitude for both of these things that I've drawn here should be the same value. I just obviously don't have a perfect drawing, but yep. So the amplitude is the vertical distance, and the wavelength is the horizontal distance. It also talks here about frequency. So it says that frequency is the number of oscillations or wave cycles per unit of time. It's not really exactly like asking for that in this question since we're just talking about amplitude. So I think I'll leave it there. If you want, you can pause the video and read that description as well if you're interested. I'll just say correct solution. Good job. And we can move on to the next question.